Have you ever met someone who just never got the memo? The one that says wherever you're from isn't enough. The one that says you're supposed to want more, be more, constantly move towards some better version. The memo most of us read at some point and just internalized without realizing it. Marta never got it. And what this movie quietly does with that, without making a speech, without underlining it, is something most people just drive right past. Let me pull it apart. Marta isn't introduced as special.
My name's Mater.
He's not fast. He's not impressive.
Oh, Lord.
He lives in a town nobody stops in anymore. Radiator Springs used to matter. Route 66. People came through, bought things, stayed for the night, and the town existed in that stream of traffic like it was built for it. Then the interstate came. Traffic stopped. Businesses closed. The town got cut off, culturally and economically, in every way that matters. And Marta is still there. His yard is full of rusted cars he clearly hasn't gotten rid of, because getting rid of them never seemed like a priority. He runs the towing service. He knows everybody by name.
Otis!
Hey, Mater!
He talks about the town like it's the best place he's ever been, and it's the only place he's ever been. He laughs too loud. He says things at the wrong moment. He has mismatched eyes and a cracked windshield, and he meets Lightning McQueen, who is effectively the most famous car in the country at that moment.
Where is McQueen?
And his first instinct is just to be his friend. No conditions, no calibration. Lightning McQueen pulls into town as an accident, a legal problem, a stranger who destroyed the road and is stuck waiting for a judge to figure out what to do with him. And Marta knocks on the fence of the impound lot and invites him tractor tipping. Like that's the obvious next move. Like, of course you'd want to do that. The memo, when you think about it, is built into almost everything we're exposed to. It's in the aspirational messaging of commerce. It's in the way we measure success. It's in the implicit hierarchy that says certain places matter more than others. Certain careers matter more than others. Certain versions of yourself matter more than the original. The message arrives so early and from so many directions that it stops feeling like messaging and starts feeling like truth. Like reality itself. You grow up thinking that contentment in small places is a kind of failure, that staying put is settling, that if you're not moving towards something bigger, you're moving backward. The memo gets into your bones, and then you spend the rest of your life either chasing what it promised or trying to undo the damage of believing it. Marta never received that installation. There's no evidence in anything about him as a launching point towards something else. He's not there because he couldn't escape. He's there because this is where he is. And that's enough, not in a defeated way, in a complete way. The distinction matters more than it seems. That's the part that keeps coming back to me. Marta isn't performing. He's not the guy who turns up because he wants the credit for being welcoming. He's not trying to be the interesting one, the charming one, the one McQueen remembers. He just shows up. He shows McQueen the stars from the hill. He talks about the old days. He says all of it with this full-volume sincerity that McQueen clearly doesn't know what to do with, because McQueen has spent his whole life in rooms where that kind of sincerity is a liability. You learn fast in competitive rooms. You learn to keep the real thing behind the edited version. And here's this tow truck who never learned that. Not because he's naive, because he never had a reason to build the distance. Most of us have a reason. You remember the first time you got genuinely excited about something in front of the wrong people. You started talking, you were 2 sentences in, and you felt the temperature in the room change. Nobody said anything cruel. They didn't need to. You learned to read it. And somewhere after that, the process started. You run your enthusiasm through a filter now. You check whether it's the kind of excitement that will land before you let it out. You pre-edit. And it happens so automatically after a while that you don't even notice you're doing it. You think you're just being appropriate, being socially aware, but what you're actually doing is making yourself smaller in advance, so the room doesn't have to do it for you. That's not awareness, that's armor. And the thing about armor is it works both directions. It keeps things out, yeah, but it also keeps you in. The filtering happens in 1,000 small moments. Someone asks you how you're doing, and you say fine instead of telling them about the thing that's actually bothering you. You tell a joke that lands differently than you meant it to.
Hey! Was that floating like a Cadillac, or was that stinging like a Beamer?
And instead of clarifying, you let people keep the wrong impression because correcting it feels like it would take up too much space. You know something will make you cry, so you don't watch it. You know you'll care too much about something, so you convince yourself not to care at all. You see an opportunity that excites you, and you talk yourself out of it
You keep talking to yourself, people think you're crazy.
before anyone else gets the chance to. You edit the vulnerable stuff. You present the version of yourself that doesn't need anything, the version that can handle everything alone, the version that won't be a burden. And you do this so consistently that eventually you can't remember what the unedited version actually wanted. You just know the edited version, the one you present, the one that works fine at parties and in professional settings and in the casual interactions that make up most of our lives. It's efficient, it's sustainable, it's also lonely in a specific way that's hard to describe if you've never felt it,
Friends. Yes, there's,
and impossible to describe accurately if you have. Marta never built it, and the movie doesn't punish him for that. That's the thing. He doesn't get humiliated for being open. He doesn't turn out to have a secret, sophisticated depth that justifies the audience's interest in him. He's just Marta, and the movie insists, without ever saying it out loud, that that's enough. Not in spite of everything he is, because of everything he is, exactly as he is. Here's the thing about Lightning McQueen when he rolls into Radiator Springs. He's running entirely on transaction. Every relationship he has is a function of what he's about to win. He doesn't have a real crew. He doesn't have people who know him. He has an infrastructure built around being the fastest, and he's not happy inside it. He's competitive. He's scared. He's always running some calculation about falling behind, and he lands in this town where the entire culture isn't organized around getting somewhere, and he can't process it. Downtime feels like a threat to him. He treats the forced stop as an obstacle, not a pause. He wants out, and what he encounters instead is a person who has no concept of why you'd want out of this particular life. Transaction-based relationships have a particular texture. There's always an exchange underneath. You're here because of what I can do for you, or what you can do for me, or what we can do for each other that serves our individual interests. It's the baseline of most professional relationships, most networks, most of the social structures that keep modern life organized. And it's efficient. But it also means you're never showing up as a full person. You're showing up as the version of yourself that's relevant to the transaction. You're curating your relevance, and the other people are doing the same thing. So you end up in rooms with people you work with for years and never actually know them. You have colleagues you've spent 40 hours a week with for a decade, and you couldn't tell someone what actually keeps them up at night, because none of that is relevant to the transaction, so none of it ever surfaces. McQueen has been in those rooms his whole life. His team manages his image, his sponsors use his name, his rivals measure themselves against him, and none of those relationships are actually about McQueen. They're about what McQueen can do, what McQueen can win, what McQueen is worth. Nobody is treating him like a person. They're treating him like a vehicle for something else. That's disorienting in a specific way. You've been in rooms like that, probably, where you're braced for something, and then the thing you were braced for never comes, and you don't know where to put that. You've been carrying the tension for so long, it doesn't feel like tension anymore. It just feels like how you hold yourself. And then someone treats you like none of that was necessary, and you genuinely don't know how to respond. That's McQueen at the hill. That's McQueen looking at the stars. He's not processing a view. He's processing what it feels like when nothing is being asked of him. Psychologists have a name for the version of yourself you build. When the original version gets a reaction, you don't know how to survive. They call it the false self, the version that exists because the real one wasn't safe. And most people who build it don't remember building it. It happened gradually. A correction here, a pulled-back reaction there, a room that went quiet at the wrong moment, and eventually you stopped offering the unedited version because the edited version just worked better. People responded well to it. They said you were easy to be around. That's Tigress watching the dominoes, rebuilding herself tile by tile. That's Poe pre-apologizing for existing before anyone says anything. And that's McQueen rehearsing his press interviews so well that even he can't tell which parts are real anymore. The false self isn't a lie exactly. It's more like a strategic selection of truths. You're not making things up. You're just presenting the version of your actual self that will play well in that particular room. And the problem is that after you've done it enough times, across enough situations, you lose track of which version is which. You start to think that the edited version might actually be who you are. The real version starts to feel like a performance you're doing when nobody's watching, like a breakdown, like a lapse. And that shift, that fundamental disorientation about which version of you is actually you, is one of the things that's hardest to come back from. Marta is the opposite of all of that, completely. He's the same person whether he's in front of McQueen or talking to Sally or out by himself at 2 in the morning. There's no gap, no distance between the version he presents and the version he actually is. And that either sounds like the simplest thing in the world or one of the hardest things to achieve, depending on where you're coming from and how long you've been editing. The thing that's genuinely hard to sit with, the part worth saying out loud, is that you can't think your way into that. You can't strategize yourself into Marta's life. The moment you're working on being more authentic, you're already performing authenticity, and the performance is the exact thing you're trying to get away from. You can't deliberately close the gap between your real self and your performed self, because the deliberate closing is itself a performance. That's not a way out. That's a different kind of trap. So what do you do with that? I don't have a clean answer. I've spent a long time not having a clean answer. What I can tell you is what I've noticed. You can catch it. You can catch the moment you're filtering. The laugh you analyze after it's already out. The thing you said that was real and then immediately cushioned with a joke because the real thing felt too exposed. The excitement you swallowed before it could land wrong. You can catch it happening. And sometimes just catching it is enough to let one thing through. One honest thing. Unmuted. And sometimes that's where it starts. Doc Hudson is worth staying with for a minute. Because he's the other version of this story.
What? The fabulous Hudson Hornet used to hold the record for most wins in a single season.
He was a famous race car. He had the championship, the recognition, all of it. He got hurt, and instead of anyone waiting for him to come back, they just moved on. Didn't give him the choice.
How could a car like you quit at the top of your game?
You think I quit?
And Doc's answer to that was to seal everything off. Came to Radiator Springs, became the town doctor, kept everyone at the right distance. And you can feel it in every scene with him. He's sharp, he's capable, he helps people, but he's not there, not fully. He's always got one hand on the door. He protects himself by never fully arriving. And what that costs him.
Did you know Doc is a famous race car?
What that particular kind of armor costs isn't obvious from the outside. From the outside, it looks like independence. It looks like he doesn't need anything, but that's not what it is. That's what needing things and being afraid of them looks like when it's well managed. Marta looks at Doc the same way he looks at everybody else. No analysis, no reading of the walls, no careful approach designed to get past the defenses without triggering them. He just treats Doc like a person, not a project, not a puzzle. Just a person who exists in this town that Mater loves. And there's something about that, about being treated like a person by someone who has no concept of why you'd need to be handled, that's harder to armor against than you'd think. Watch what happens between McQueen and Mater across the movie. McQueen starts trying to fix things. He sees the town as a problem to solve, he resents the stay, and then slowly stops resenting it and doesn't quite notice when that happened. He helps with the road because he has to. Then he helps with other things, because he wants to. He's paying attention now, not to what he can get out of it, just paying attention. And Marta is the reason for that. Not because Marta taught him anything, because Marta gave him a room where nothing had to be proven. And McQueen hasn't been in a room like that in a long time, maybe ever. That's what unconditional does when you're not used to it. It doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels confusing. You keep waiting for the condition. For the moment when the warmth turns out to have been building toward something, and it never comes, and eventually you stop waiting for it, and that's when it starts to actually land. There's a discomfort in unconditional acceptance if you've been living in a world of transactions. It doesn't make sense. It seems naive or manipulative, or like there's a trick you haven't figured out yet, because in transaction-based systems, there's always a trick. There's always an angle. Nobody does anything without getting something out of it. And so when someone is kind to you, just because, when someone includes you, just because, when someone names their most prized possession after knowing you for 2 days, just because that's what friendship means to them, it reads as impossible, as dangerous, as something you need to understand before you can accept it. But understanding isn't the gateway. Accepting is. You have to let it work on you before you can analyze it. And that's the hard part. The end of the movie is McQueen about to win the Piston Cup. First car across the line in years. And Strip Weathers crashes, and McQueen stops racing, goes back, pushes him to the finish line instead. He loses the race. And you can see in his face that he doesn't care. Not performing, not caring. actually doesn't care because something has reordered. The thing he was running toward wasn't what he actually wanted. What he wanted was to matter to someone, to be somewhere that meant something.
Would you like to become the new face of Dynaco?
Thank you, Mr. Tex, but these Rusty's guys over there gave me my big break.
To have a best friend who named his tow cable after him and meant it, and somewhere between the stars on the hill and the broken road and the dusty main street of a town nobody stops in anymore. He found that. Marta didn't teach him that. He just showed him what it looked like. What it looked like when you're not running from yourself, when the version you put out there and the version underneath are the same version, when you can call a stranger your best friend the night you meet them. Because why wouldn't you? Because that's what it looks like when you never built the filter. And maybe you can't build that from scratch. Maybe that ship has sailed for most of us. But you can notice what it feels like when someone else has it. That disorienting warmth. That thing that makes you want to put something down that you've been carrying for a long time. And maybe you can ask yourself who you show up for like that, who you let in before they've earned it on your terms, who you've told you're glad they're here without waiting to see if they've done something worth the telling. Because sometimes the question isn't whether you're enough. Sometimes it's whether you've let yourself believe that someone else already is.